Welcome everyone to a new series on this channel called Fatal Encounters, where I'll be telling the story of the final moments of some very unfortunate individuals. If you do enjoy the video, please consider subscribing. Now with that said, let's get into the first fatal encounter. Viewer discretion is advised. In the summer of 1974 in Sarasota, Florida, Christine Chubbuck was going about her usual routines as a news reporter and presenter. She would always start the day off with her morning talk show on WXLT TV. As she entered the studio, she said her hellos and good mornings as she would if it were any other day. She made her way through the building, heading towards her recording room, where she'd recorded many times before. She sat down and began meticulously organising her notes and stories that she was going to be announcing that morning. Once everyone in the studio was ready, the cameras started rolling and Christine would start presenting the news. But after reaching halfway through the script, Christine deviated from the teleprompter, her words sending confusion through the room. The workers within the studio started looking around at each other, hoping that someone knew what she was doing, but nobody would know what would happen next. She started presenting news of her own, saying, "In keeping with Channel 40's policy of bringing you the latest in blood and guts, and in living colour you are going to see another first attempted." Just a second later, before anyone could react, Christine reached beneath the table, pulling out a revolver, and with chilling calmness she aimed it at her head and pulled the trigger. The deafening sound echoed off the walls. Media workers stood frozen in disbelief, and the camera continued to roll for agonizing seconds until it was finally cut off. Prior to this, Christine had been grappling with feelings of frustration and disillusionment, both within her career and her personal life. Despite her outward composure, Christine struggled with inner demons that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day, ultimately leading to this tragic, fatal encounter. Just a few years later, in 1977, Toronto, another conscientious individual would meet his end with all of his co-workers as witnesses. Gary Hott was a respected and charismatic lawyer in Toronto, working every day of the week at the esteemed law firm Holden Day Wilson. Gary was known to be a very confident man and was definitely someone who would always want to prove their point. He was a lawyer after all. One especially hot afternoon in the Holden Day Wilson law firm building, Gary was engaged in a spirited discussion with his colleagues. The topic of debate was the seemingly indestructible nature of the office building windows, particularly those on the 24th floor, which is where they were stood. Gary boasted of their strength and resilience, adamant that they could withstand even the most forceful impact, but his colleagues disagreed. Eager to prove his point, Gary approached one of the large windows and told his colleagues to watch closely. As he shouted throughout the whole office, "These windows are absolutely unbreakable," and with a theatrical jump, Gary threw himself against the window, expecting it to hold firm against his weight. And it did. The glass didn't shatter, but the window frame popped right out of the building, sending Gary hurtling through the air. His colleagues could only watch in stunned disbelief as he plummeted towards the ground below. Despite the swift arrival of emergency responders, there was nothing they could do. He most likely died upon impact, marking Gary Hott's fatal encounter. Colin Scott, a 23-year-old from Portland, Oregon, was with his sister, Sable Scott. They were taking a trip together from Portland, Oregon to the Yellowstone National Park in June 2016. The siblings were excited to explore the park's renowned natural wonders, including its geothermal features like hot springs and geysers. On the afternoon of June 7th, Colin and Sable ventured to the Norris Geyser Basin, which is a geothermal area known for its colourful hot springs and bubbling geysers. It's often a very popular spot among tourists, and so the siblings, with cameras in their hands, eagerly made their way along the boardwalk, every so often walking past signs warning people to stay on the boardwalk. But something caught Colin's eye in the distance. It was an unusual looking thermal pool, but he couldn't get a good view from the boardwalk. Now overpowered by curiosity, Colin began venturing off the wooden walkways, wanting to get a closer look at the thermal pool. Managing to get to it quite easily, Colin approached the edge of the thermal pool and was met with the pungent smell of sulphur. As Colin took one more step, he would unknowingly put his foot down on an algae-covered rock, which caused him to completely slip over, sending him careening towards the edge of the pool. In that heart-stopping moment, time seemed to stand still, as Colin desperately reached out for anything to grasp onto, his mind racing with fear and adrenaline. But it was too late. Colin plunged into the scalding water. He screamed out from the agonizing pain, piercing every part of his body, before being swallowed by the steaming mist. Sable didn't see where her brother went, but the cries for help accompanied by his sudden disappearance left Sable horrified, and she began frantically crying out for help. Park rangers and rescue teams responded swiftly to the scene, but there was nothing they could do. The specific thermal pool Colin had fallen into was said to be 212 degrees Fahrenheit, so dangerous that they couldn't even recover his body. And so there, Colin Scott would remain, meeting his fatal encounter. In the state of Kentucky lies a sleepy town called Betterton, with just a humble population of 350 people. Betterton was known for its tight-knit community and overall quietness, almost boringness, as nothing unusual ever really happened there. Monica Meyer was the elected mayor of Betterton. Living there all her life, she had now found herself in a position where she could give back to the community, and that's exactly what she would do. But not just that. Monica would always go above and beyond to help the people of Betterton because that was just the type of person that she was. On the outskirts of Betterton is a small sewage facility where the whole town's waste would go to get recycled. Due to Betterton having such a low population, there were often jobs left undone throughout the town, and the sewage facility was no exception. When there was a lack of workers in the facility, Monica would be the first to volunteer and was happy to help in whatever way she could. So later that day, Monica would head down to the sewage facility where she would be taught how to clean the sewage tanks, and after a few weeks of doing this, they would also teach Monica how to test the material for chlorine and sediment. On the 21st of March, Monica Myers was making her way to the sewage facility as usual to do her daily cleanup and tests. But when she arrived at the facility, it appeared she was the only one there, but she didn't mind and began making a start in cleaning the sewage tanks. After she was done, she decided to quickly do a test, so she hoisted herself up onto the large walkway that would allow her to walk right over the huge 50-foot vat of human waste. Monica got her testing kit out and tried to get to her knees to grab a sample from the vat, but the 70-year-old woman's feet gave way and she fell straight into the vat. Monica desperately tried to escape, but the consistency was like quicksand. Every movement just seemed to send her deeper into the vat, until finally the fumes from the waste became too much, and Monica Myers would pass out and drown in the vat of human feces, and that would be Monica Myers' fatal encounter.